All right, so for today, let's take a small look at collisions, inelastic and elastic. So I'm going to go ahead and fade over to my other screen for a minute, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull in the first applet, and also the the graph for the first applet. So for the first part of the experiment, you're going to choose different settings, and you're going to go ahead and hit play and watch the reaction of the simulation. Just to let you know right here, that's what the first answer to the prelab would have been, is the ball would have come in, the first ball would have stopped, and then the second ball that was at rest would have taken all the energy. And so if I would have typed those in down here, I could have said the final kinetic energy of ball 2 would have been equal to the initial kinetic energy of ball 1. And you're going to make some changes to the sliders. Just as a reminder, for uncertainty, the smallest deviations are some of the equipment limitations, as well as the time in the table. So like how often it takes data. Control C, Control. And so to copy the data, you just select any cell, Control A, Control C, and then you can paste it into your Excel spreadsheet. So over here, I've already filled out my Excel spreadsheet, but I'm going to go ahead and right-click, paste again. And if you make a mistake, it's super easy to go back to the applet, watch 5 seconds more of data. Make sure the applet fully completes before you push. Don't hit stop. Just let it run until it stops by itself. Additionally, in the instructions, doesn't say to actually type in these values, the mass velocity of the balls in a separate little tab. I highly recommend, oops, let me just move that out of the way. I highly recommend typing them up in there in case you have to go back and take data again. So the next thing you're going to be doing is you're going to be making some more columns. You're going to be making a couple columns for the velocities, and then kinetic energies, and then the total energy. Just as a reminder, the velocity is the numerical derivative. It's 1 after minus 1 before, divided by 1 after minus 1 before in time. And the other one is the same thing, just we're shifting over those cells just a little bit. Don't forget you can highlight both the cells and double click them down the column. Kinetic energy, it might be a little bit easier if you make this little side table, because then you can reference that cell, and if you want to change your data, then it's quick and easy to change the data. Just type in a new value right there. And then if you notice, there's little dollar signs up there. The little dollar signs means that that cell is fixed, so as I copy it down, it remains that cell. Just as a reminder, to get those dollar signs, you can either press F4 button, function key F4 on Windows, or on Macintosh or Apple, you can hit Command T. Command T will automatically add those dollar signs for you. Don't forget it's 1/2 mv squared, and then once again 1/2 mv squared. And then total energy is super simple, just add the two. The next, to make the graph, you have to select the columns. Don't hold the Control or Command key when you have another cell selected, or else you won't be able to make a graph. So go ahead and just select that graph. Now hold the Control and Command key, or Command key, and then select the other graphs. And then go ahead and hit Insert, Graph, Scatter Plot. And then you're going to make the dots smaller like you have before. Don't forget to add in a title and axis titles as well. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the before and after the collision. So as you see in my graph, here's the collision right there, the dip and energy. You're going to have to talk about and think about where that energy goes and why it comes back. You're just going to highlight over the graph and see right here, I see a point of 1.22. And so I went ahead, even though it doesn't ask you to, I just went ahead and typed it in there. And then over here, I went ahead and found another point. And sometimes you have to click on a cell and then come back and highlight over it again. And see, I see 2.12 again. Now it says make a copy of this worksheet, mover copy, so that if you screw something up and then you're going to rename. And so to move or copy, you right click or control click on a Mac. And I'm going to call this energy before. And then we're going to make another one, energy after we get it set up. So first off, Control C or Command C. Oops, I spelled energy wrong. I'm sorry about that. And then go back to energy, select total energy, Control C, and value paste. And we're not really looking at uncertainties so much in this one, so you can just start out with 0.01. Now the next couple steps say we have to delete that first row, so right click or control click, shift cells up, and then zoom to the bottom of the screen and delete the last row as well. Remember that first and last row don't calculate correctly with the velocity, and so you're going to need it. Now just as a reminder to do those quick movements, you can either do on a Windows, shift, the end button, press the end button once, and then the up arrow or down arrow, and then for Mac you hold command and shift and press the down arrow to quickly make a selection like that. Now right here, before we type in the numbers to change this, what we're going to do is we're going to make a copy so that the second set is already ready. So create a copy, and then let's rename this, call this energy after, and then now we're going to go back to our data, and I remember I marked it 1.22. I'm going to go a little bit too far just to show you what it looks like if you do it wrong. So I'm going to come down here to about 1.3 and delete the data below that. And I'm going to go ahead and put in the right checks and hit perform regression. And I'm looking at the graph and it looks almost okay. When it's zoomed in, however, you can kind of see that there's a little pattern there. And when you look at the residuals, even though there's some stuff up top, you see that there's quite a bit more stuff down below. And so I really should take away and be a little bit safe and not include those last couple points. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and delete that extra amount of points. So right click, delete, shift cells up, come back up here, press the button again, and my data looks a lot better. My residuals look a lot better. Don't forget to round the standard deviation of the residuals, and then Control C and value paste it in there, and then you can go look at your results and round your results. Come down here, I've already rounded them. I need to just take away 1, 0. Okay, now you're going to do the same thing for energy after, but this time you're going to take a point after. I had 2.12. Just to be safe, I'm going to go ahead to, I don't know, 2.3. Close enough. So I'm going to do shift end up. Now here's a little trick. If you're still holding the shift button down, you can right click down a couple and just delete this data right here. Shift cells up. Come back up here, press the button, the right fit first, the 2 checks there, perform regression. That looks good. I don't see any of the collision in the data. My residuals look good. So round the standard deviation of the residuals, a value paste it there, and double click it down and come over to the results. And I've already rounded these results as well. Here, to do a z-score, I want you to copy this over to your energy before and value paste it in, label this energy after, and when you value paste, it pastes all the digits again, so go ahead and just decrease them. And now your z-score is a little bit different. It's going to be equal ABS. You don't technically need the ABS, but I like it in case I pick the wrong one first, divided by the square root of the first one squared plus the second uncertainty squared. And I see I had a little typo in there, so after I close it, I'm going to add in a square, and that looks good. And so my z-score is 0.0125, and so I'm really confident that energy before is the same as energy after, and that it was a perfectly elastic collision. Moving on to the last section, it's super easy. You can just right click or control click and copy this worksheet, rename it to elastic, go over to the other applet. Let me drag that in for a second. Take a set of data, and if you have different sliders, record those sliders. And then let's see, I think my data looks different right now than the data I have in here. Oh, that's because it's inelastic data. Okay, then that's going to match the 1.2, 0.4, 0.8. And then you just value paste in, or you just paste in your data right here in B1, and all these formulas are going to automatically update. This time we're not going to ask you to do a fit before and a fit after. All you have to do for here, if you notice this before and after, is just hover the mouse over and just see what point it comes up to. Right here it says 0.481, and that's what I wrote right down there. And if I highlight down here, I hit 0.0429, and that's pretty close to the point that I got before. And let's do a simple subtraction. You're going to come up to a question that says, where does this energy go? Why doesn't it come back? And you're going to think about it, discuss it with your group, and see if you can figure it out. And that's basically it for today. But I want to let you know next week there's not going to be an experiment next week because it's that spring break broken up. And then after that, just fade over here and pull this one over there. After that, we're going to use these same applets, and we could potentially use the same data that we took, and we're going to be looking at momentum in a couple weeks. But that experiment doesn't have any steps written. It just has some suggestions what you need to do to get full points. And so this experiment's a little bit short. I recommend that you look over the prelab, which includes writing about 10 steps, well, 8 to 10 steps of how you're going to do the next experiment. And make those notes right now. Maybe make them even on the Excel sheet so that you can come back to it and remember what you're going to be doing, and then the next time we meet, it'll be a short experiment as well. So take a moment at the end and think about the following experiment, even though it's 2 weeks from now. And with that, are there any questions? I don't hear any questions. I don't see any questions. And so I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.